today on the podcast here, we have Sergeant First Class Christopher Figuera. Chris and I, we have been buddies for, man, what is it?
Since '07?
It's crazy. Like, both of us, we've just gotten like a fine wine, just the better as we age, that kind of thing. And you want to be able to also make sure you put that up closer to you so they can hear you.
It's not made for short people.
No, for sure.
You're editing, I'm sure, right?
But yeah, there's so but yeah, so tell me a little bit about, like, we have gone back for decades, you know what I mean? Like, we've gone back, we've known each other, we've worked together, we have partnered together on some different various projects when I was on the supplement store, and you kind of, you ended up going into more of it, and you were a hell of an insurance agent, back in the day, with life and health. But I think you felt as though God had a different calling for you.
I did. Just a lot of different, as I transitioned out of the Army in '06, retiring, when you kind of come out of there, it's figuring out, what am I doing next? I had this 20 years of everything was set in place, knew exactly what I was doing, to all of a sudden that purpose is gone. So I can't even remember how I got into the insurance. I think I answered an ad in the newspaper for Mega Life and Health.
Gosh, man, that's like, it's so different. Like NACE or whatever, what was it, National Association for the Self-Employed. We used to do that. And then like American Community Days.
Yeah, it was with Mark Lampin, if I remember.
Oh my God. It's Mark probably is the one who recruited you.
No, it was Bob or Jamie Warman.
Jamie, oh my gosh. Or what was it, Bob?
Bob Onstadt.
Onstadt. Yeah, that was the guy who like foamed at the mouth when he talked. Whatever, right?
Yep. From Milwaukee.
Nicest guy ever. But yeah, I was just like, you have rabies.
Yeah, so I remember.
So pretty much like, but yeah, it was, I mean, back in those days, man, it was so different, like I try and tell guys today about, like, we didn't have the stuff that we have now. We didn't have the technology that we have now. Going and doing leads, like I remember like me and you walking through the mall.
Yeah.
And like every single person knowing you and being like, hey, Chris, what's up? And you're like, yeah, he's my client, and you introduced me actually to my current tailor, Mo.
Okay.
So you remember Mo?
I do.
Right? When I once in a
that was a long
lightning
time.
strike when I get in the suit, right? But yeah, I mean, walking through and you doing walk and talks, and I know you come also after you had spent so much time in the military. I think there's a saying, I think, in the military, right? When you get out of the military, you go into recruiting, right?
Yeah, I was recruiting last 2 years of my Army career, so that in my mind, it was a good way to transition from military to civilian. So knowing everybody, that's why. I mean, I was out and about trying to sell the Army, which was not easy at that time. But yeah, so got into the insurance. I think we set up a booth once at the mall in Chesterfield, which it worked out well.
Like back when it was a mall?
Yeah, when it was a mall.
Like that just seems so long ago. Like, and yet it really, if you really think about it, it really wasn't that long ago.
But when we were working together, I started struggling with some stuff, mental health wise. And when you're in the military, you hide all that. I don't want to lose my job. I got to keep going. I got these people I'm in charge of. I got to play like I got my stuff together. Yeah, didn't really. So no purpose, doing the insurance, felt like life was just kind of falling apart on me. Ended up running into a guy who introduced me to the psychologist, Dr. Shapiro, started kind of meeting with him, opening up with some of my military traumas, and not to go too far in depth with that one. There's, I had a lot of stuff that happened through the military. I just kind of tucked away and moved on. But working with him, got myself back on track, and the original question is what led me to doing the mental health piece, and it was really wanting to give back what was given to me. Having the counseling degree, felt like, oh my gosh, now I got to kind of I've got this purpose, but how do I live this stuff that I'm talking about to everybody?
Well, it's such a random. I mean, like, I I have a big thing where I hire people from the military because
Mhm.
people from the military have structure, they have work ethic, they have respect. And that is something that is very much missing out of today's workforce.
It is.
And, you know, finding guys like yourself, there's also a whole set of problems. And I noticed a lot of these things,
Mhm.
you know, of seeing like, you know, I'd have a guy that, you know, he worked with me and worked for us. And he, you know, he would just kind of everything, like all the beans would spill out, and you just like wouldn't hear from the guy, and he'd be off in the woods, like, you know, cooking marshmallows or something. And it's such. I think a lot of people don't really realize that PTSD is a disability, you know, and it shouldn't be treated as anything other than a disability. And when I think it was Dr. Shapiro that had said something when I was out there working with some of the veterans with you, when he had said that, you know, you have to look at it as that this isn't like an illness. This is a disability.
It's like a knee injury. You got to rehab it.
Right.
I try and get rid of the D part of the PTS.
Right.
I think disorder has such a negative sound to it, and it has this. When you say disorder, you feel like, okay, I'm never going to be able to move from this. This is always going to haunt me, and that's
I think
not
there's
the
mindset
case.
there too of do
Oh,
you
most
want to move
definitely.
past it? I think there's a lot of people that I've seen that milk that, you know, and not any disrespect for anybody that has ever been in the military. You're definitely underserved, you know, and like you were saying, I look at it that there's more sedation that happens than actually trying to help the soldier, to
Mhm.
trying to be able to fix the root of the cause. And I think that's where you are a major blessing for these soldiers,
Thank you.
because you had looked at natural approaches, even things for like I walk in and like when I've known you as, you know, Chris, and we're buddies and everything else, but I don't know the Chris that's like smelling like natural oils and stuff like that, right? You know, like where you're like rubbing stuff on your freaking arm and telling them to smell it and stuff. And I'm like walking in, I'm like, what is going on? This dude is straight just lost his mind. But all those things, they're natural remedies and they do help. And then, you know, I know that we got into talking about doing different natural remedies to help these guys, and it was wildly successful. And I think you got a lot of pushback with that too, right?
I did from the VA. So fast forward, got through school, ended up getting hired through the VA at the vet center out of Swansea. But my day number one, they said, hey, we need you to go out to Scott Air Force Base. We have the whole 5th floor of the clinic, make it a vet center. I barely even knew what a vet center was.
Right.
So went out there and, you know, in my military career, I had 6 years Air Force and then switched to the Army, which don't ask me why. Well, I wanted to be a real cop. Anyway, so having that 6 years Air Force really helped me out at Scott, working with these Air Force folks transitioning. And so it was, I had run into you. You owned One Nation Nutrition. You, I think, were the one that talked to me about CBD oil.
Yeah, I found that. So I was actually very much not a fan until I actually saw what it did for my autistic nephew.
And I remember that story.
It was like night and day difference.
Yeah.
So we had this video of my nephew that is, you know, he's autistic, and he is, you know, kind of like he's doing what I would say the autistic type of behaviors. You know, fumbling around and, you know, like the sensories and all that. And we gave him a little bit of the CBD drops, which was natural. It didn't have like THC or nothing
Right.
like that in there and stuff, right? We gave him a little bit of it, and then we show a video like 5 minutes later, and he's just
Calm.
naturally just like eating, living his life. I mean, it was great. And when I had seen that, I was like, man, like that was such an eye opener for me to see that something that really we were taught that was so bad, it actually had so many helpful effects. And I mean, I've seen so many different people, my wife included, that has benefited from cannabis and,
Mm-hmm.
the different things. And, like you said, PTSD comes in all different types of forms. And, like we've worked through some of I mean, crap, I even have it myself, right? From different things that I've done or didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
But it was always about trying to be able to find a way to become better. And we've gone back and we talked about this, that I struggled back in those days with drugs and alcohol. And I was pretty much a functioning alcoholic, and nobody really knew.
Never knew.
Never knew. I hid it really well. I would just be really red in the face, which I'm still today. And I'm not like rip roaring drunk or something right now, but like, it was something that, I was like these secrets, it was like you were trying to still block something. You were trying to like tuck it away and not have anybody, let them know what was going on with your feelings. But as soon as you opened up and as soon as you talked about those things, you find that there's a lot of people that actually relate to that,
Mm-hmm.
which is where that group therapy really comes in place. It's like, man, I'm not as messed up as that guy, So
Let you know
and
you're
it's-
not by yourself. There's
Yes.
others, same thing. I always tell people, all my clients, and hopefully somebody will take this and use it. But with post-traumatic stress or mental health, try not to let that be your excuse to misbehave, if that makes sense. And that's when you hit on the people with post-traumatic stress will use that almost as an excuse.
Yeah.
So don't let it be a reason to misbehave. Don't blame. Okay, we had a client of mine that beat the crap out of his wife once. Ended up doing some jail time, and he just kept saying, "Well, the PTSD made me do it. PTSD made me do it." And so from that, I decided, you know what? We've got to work on not letting that be our excuse. We may have PTS, but it doesn't have us.
Yeah. What was it? Because, like I said, you were like not just a good salesperson. Like, I would put you up there at like the highest percent of like some of the best salespeople I've ever run across.
Thank you.
And retention wise and everything else, like we always used to say it's not what you sell, it's what you keep. Like, you were great with that. You formed relationships really well with customers. And I think that some of the recruiting experience there definitely had some degree of that. I always had a really hard time when they would tell us to go do walk and talks.
I loved them.
I freaked out. Like I just like hated it, more than anything. It's like you're trying to walk into a shop and sell them like employee benefits and
Right.
and things. And I used to absolutely hate it, but I did it, and it pulled something out of me that I didn't know that I had. And the thing, so, I can kind of relate to this. This is the whole reason, you talk about giving back, right? And you feel like God had a different calling for you. So this is the whole reason why I had started the Mr. Insurance movement, right? So I had started this to try and be able to bring good back to the insurance community, to take and to be able to help these guys to learn from my mistakes so that they didn't make the same mistakes. I was able to help them to be able to not fall into the potholes that I fell into, and I could guide them around and show them the path and give them some structure and some help and some guidance, and I'm also a pretty down to earth and a pretty real guy, right? So you'd be like, listen, you can't be doing that. You know what I mean? Like, the slap on the wrist sort of thing and stuff. Like, I've done these things. This is a bad road. You do not want to go down this. But it goes into more than just insurance. It goes into exactly what you were saying, the core of the root of their problems, and, how they conduct themselves in their family and their life, that's going to transact into business. And I just had, I've found a real love for this where I have almost completely shifted to where, my agency, we've been around for over 20 years, right? So my agency runs, we got some good leadership in place there, and it runs pretty much whether I'm there or whether I'm not. And, for me, it's
Which
something
doesn't
different
happen
now.
overnight. something like
20
that.
years,
Took
yeah.
a long time to get it where it's at.
23 to be exact. I guess this would be in February. It'll be 24 years
Wow.
on that stuff. I know we're getting old,
I was going
right?
to say, you're getting old.
Yeah. So, my thing is though, is that, like I said, I feel like at this point there was a different purpose. And I know that people are like, well, why would you're not making any money with this. Why would you do this? I was like, because it's a different purpose for me. It's not money driven. It's the gratification of being able to help other people driven.
Giving back what was given to you.
Yeah. And I think that you can relate with that, with like you were saying. So, kind of tell me a little bit about how that, you getting into that and why you maybe were feeling as though that was like what you wanted to do in life. And,
Go real deep
I
here.
mean, right. Yeah. And if you feel uncomfortable,
No, I'm
you
good.
don't have to go any further.
So when we first met, I was actually struggling with opiate addiction. Nobody knew that one. So when I finally decided I need to get clean, I can live life without this stuff. That's really when, and even going through my undergrad, I was still doing the opiates. Well, I mean, couldn't go a day without it, doctor shop and all that stuff. But what I was doing is I was covering up my traumas. I was burying those down, covering up the medicines, kind of the same.
They
as
make
alcohol.
it so available for you too.
Back then it was super easy. I won't go into how I was getting them, give people ideas. But I decided I need to get clean, and then I'm not the only one out there. I'd run into a couple other people that we were in the military together, and they talked about taking pain pills for this, that, and so I was like, crap, I'm not the only guy out here doing this. So once I got clean, I decided, I need to somehow get into the VA. I've got to get in there. I know there's a large group of folks that I can help. I can hopefully set some type of example with my story. So yeah, that's really how I got into it. Being honest, it was the addiction.
Well, I mean, everything that has led to success in my life has either it's mainly been because of either mistake or a lesson.
Something bad happening.
So, it's like, I talk about this all the time about COVID, and COVID was one of the most difficult things. And it's still to this day, it set me back in a big way. And I'll share something with you that's very, very private. And something that, I didn't realize would affect me the way that it did. But overnight during COVID, so we're in the high risk auto business, or I should say that was the bread and butter at that time. And it still is, but we work with high risk clients. So if you're not holding, in many circumstances, the person's hand to the fire, they're not going to do what they're supposed to do. So you had no courts open, no DMVs open. They had that whole TikTok thing going around where you could like put the message in the window, like I got COVID, like you have to like go get a search warrant and you don't want to get COVID and I have leprosy and whatever it was for them not to get in trouble. So people, again, they weren't having their hand held to the fire. They didn't care to do the right thing. And to a certain degree, I would say didn't need to do the right thing.
Nobody's watching them.
Nobody was watching you. And unfortunately, we lost like 70% of our business overnight. Well, silently and off the record, I freaked out. I had agents looking at me. I had people quitting. I had created this, remember the PPP fund or whatever, payroll protection plan? Yeah. So I created the SPP, so I select protection plan, right? Well, what I did is I went to what I thought was just a few properties within our portfolio of investments, things I've worked my butt off to be able to have. And I leveraged a SBA loan to be able to create that fund. Because in my opinion, I was like, well, this stuff's going to blow over. So I'm just going to go to the Ozarks where it was like the safe place, and nobody really, COVID didn't exist. Like you could walk around like nothing was happening. And they did a great job of like highlighting the Ozarks. They would have the helicopters are somewhere, on CNN. My boat's sitting out there in the front of Backwater Jacks. And they're like, look at this disgrace. It's COVID soup. And we're like, you got a better chance of catching an STD, buddy. There's been a lot of alcohol consumed here. So I don't think any kind of illness is going to, like I said, less living in here,
Right.
So at least from the waist up at this point, right? So all these people have been in the pool since 10 o'clock in the morning. It's now 4 o'clock in the afternoon and nobody's left.
Yeah.
So do the math there, right? Everybody's peeing in the pool. So, I mean, it was a real eye opener for that. But getting back to this is where I was saying this gets real personal for me. So we have different times in our business where our business needs injections of funds and help and different things. And so we went to go sell a property, and we were pretty equity up on the property. And I thought, okay, man, as soon as this thing closed, 7-10 days later, that kind of thing, we're going to be good. I can inject this capital into the business and we're good to go. And, and this particular year, it was more of a down year. It was, I think people are really struggling with their funds and, the world and, just inflation and everything just getting so out of hand. I think it was very difficult for people to make Christmas happen for their families. And, we all feel so obligated.
Yeah.
But we're getting ready to close on the property. It's like probably 3 days before we're supposed to close on the property. And I get hit up by the title company. They say, hey, we got this lien on the property. I was like, what do you mean you got a lien? I was like, no lien. Like, yeah, we got a lien on this property. It's from the SBA. And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, well, you basically, any money that you get from the sale of this house is going to the SBA.
Oh my gosh.
Pay all your stuff. Okay, so it gets better. So I thought, okay, this is just one property. Oh, no, they don't shoot in anything other than a blanket. Every single property, no matter if we owed 500, $1 million, they were going to take 10 million. If we had 100 million, they were going to take 100 million. They didn't care. They owned you. And it was all of a sudden a very awful and just very invasive type of a feeling that I felt that I haven't felt in years. But I look at it like this. So I have a buddy of mine, that I talk to a lot of times. I go to him for mentorship and leadership and just kind of run some things across him.
Mm-hmm.
And, he was just like, dude, this is nothing for you. Like, you fed Coinstar to freaking pay your payroll, dude. Like go back and look at, he was like, you need to dig deep. You need to figure it out. And I'm like, okay. And so I figured it out. I'm not going to say how I did it, but I figured it out and I pulled a rabbit out of my hat. And not only did I figure it out, I put myself now into a position to where I was able to, one, on that property, I was able to take this is what's so jacked up with this, right? I could literally borrow from the property and drain it down to
even though there's a lien on it?
Yeah. You could take a HELOC against the property, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could drain that all the way down to let's say 80% you could take against the property. It's only worth, you got 20% there. They only let you go so far. It might even be 70 nowadays. It used to be 85, 90, when things were great.
Yeah.
Not so much no more. But you can do that. But if you try to be able to pull anything out when the sale of it happens, then that's not okay. So I had to do a 1031 exchange, right? I had to put it into a next property. I got basically 45 days to find a property. And then I have basically 6 months to close on that property. And that's what we did. We moved it from one to the next. But my time frame, it didn't work on my time frame. I always say it works on God's time frame.
Yeah.
And I don't like his time frame as much as I like mine. But it seems to always teach me a lesson. It teaches me, and we're actually now going to be in a way better position to where honestly this will never happen again. I was able to take what is, a bill, let's just say, well, I'm going to just kind of give you some real numbers over here, right? Of like $87,000 a month down to like 6,900 a month. So it took that away because I was able to go back in, I was able to reconsolidate, work through some of the different things, grab extra capital, be able to do what I needed to do on those things to be able to boost the business and help the business out. People don't think about this kind of stuff. Like this shit, it happens in the background and it becomes extremely stressful. I got like, my
And you can't tell everybody what's going on.
No,
You're trying
I
to deal
mean,
with it by yourself.
I try to be able to be real silent about that. Like, and then to top it off, we have this trip that was planned to Mexico, right? So and let me tell you about this, right? So we had this amazing time in Mexico, but I'm not doing any kind of sharing online about what we're doing or anything like that. We have so many awesome pictures and memories. And like, we decided about a year ago that we were going to, instead of doing Christmas, we were going to take a family vacation because it's Christmas every freaking day of the year. We spoil our kids. We're both guilty of that. And the thing is that we went on this vacation. We had an absolutely wonderful time, but holy moly, man. So when we were coming back, the airlines, everything, it was absolutely one of the most scary and most crazy experiences I've ever been through. They were understaffed, or so they said, at the airport. We sat on the plane for like 3 hours. The pilot's like, okay, we're going to take off here any minute. And people are like, well, our bags are over there, so we might want to load those on. We don't want to leave without our bags. So they're supposed to do that. And then they have where, then they finally get the bags on the plane. Then they're supposed to push us off with a tug. We're waiting on that. The pilot gets on and he's just upset. And you could just tell like things were not going according to plan.
Makes you feel secure.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So coming in, we sat on the runway for an hour to wait for a gate to pull into because they like didn't have any gates available or whatever. And then we waited for like 2.5 hours for our bags to get out there. Oh, it only got better, right? So we ended up, I promise you I'm going somewhere with this. So
I'm with you.
So we end up, our flight gets canceled. We're in another country. A lot of people are like, oh, I feel so bad for you. You're in paradise and your flight gets canceled. Poor you. Yeah. It wasn't like that. Okay. You're in a country that they want you to see the nice resorts and everything else. But outside of that, it's a very scary place.
Yeah.
It's very much a third world country. And you can relate that, I'm sure, being in like Bosnia and some of the other places.
I work counter drugs all over South America.
I bet you've seen some stuff.
Yeah.
So we end up, we go down into the baggage claim, and the baggage claim, we just keep waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. It's like 6 o'clock at this point. We're just waiting and waiting and waiting. And they're like almost like teasing us. Like they put like the little beeper thing on that. And then, everything starts going, people cheering, all that kind of stuff. And then no bags. Nothing. All of a sudden, they had one little like liquor store that was open, and it had like a few snacks and stuff, but nothing like it was almost like just a liquor boutique store sort of thing, right? There was nothing that you could really get there as far as like true food, no water so we're sitting there. It's arriving on almost midnight. We've been sitting there for like 6 hours waiting for our bags. You got people with kids that, they're looking for food or water. Nobody's able to give that to you. You got the Mexican soldiers that are walking around. They won't let you leave the airport. You're trapped. There's no plugs for chargers or anything like that. There's barely any service. you're basically, you're stuck. You're a prisoner in their baggage claim area. And I went into the bathroom and I got water, and I've been sick for like the past freaking 4 days over it with that, like my stomach and everything with that stuff. But I ended up in this scenario of things. I watched people start acting out. I watched the leaders step up. My kids recognized it for me. They said, Dad, you came up with solutions. You didn't panic, and you started like guiding people of like what we needed to do and how we needed to do it. And other people were freaking out, and then they watched and they seen your leaders. And that is really truly like when traumatic things happen, that's when those personalities seem to come out.
It's your mindset.
Yes.
What's your mindset going to be?
So I'm already stressing over all this other stuff back home, but I'm trying to let this go and trying to relax and everything. We had a great vacation. Like we really, really did. Like kids, we had a blast.
Do without the ending.
Yeah. But we finally got our bags. It's like 12 o'clock. Then we're loading on to all these like coach buses, and God only knows where we're getting taken, right? They're supposed to be taking us to these hotels and everything, but we're told, that flights aren't going out till like after the beginning of the year. Then we're told that they don't have enough hotel rooms for us, that kind of thing. I didn't leave it to chance on any of that. So what I did is I went and I went and talked to the taxi driver guy or whatever. And I was like, hey, I need like a transit van or something for me and my family. We need to find a hotel to go to. So we take the transit van, we go to this, oh my gosh, it was like the sketchiest hotel, man. I'm not even playing. He was like saying it was a Westin and his sister ran it and everything.
Owned by the cartel, right?
Brother. Oh my God. Yeah, like when a room comes with like a can of pesticide, like you're in a bad place, right?
It's got a chalk line body.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It was like the most beautiful scenery in the back. It was absolutely incredible, but it was extremely scary. But at least we looked at it like this. We were together. We had food. We had chargers. We were able to stop and be able to, get some food. We were able to get some water and things, refuel. We got, 4 hours of sleep, and then we got on the plane the next day. And our pilot was like refusing to let us on the plane until they filled the plane with the bags. And we got all these people that are standing around. And again, the flight delays and everything. Finally, they take us on these buses, and we're not able to get off of these buses. We're literally like trapped on these buses for like the New York buses or whatever, like you're like holding on to stuff. We're out on the runway. There's bags out there. There's employees out there, but there's nothing happening. Wow. And you see the pilot, he gets off, and he just starts cracking this whip. And I'm convinced to this day that we would have never gotten home had it not been for our pilot. He says, everybody grab your bag, come over to the back of the plane, come over to this, put it on the conveyor belt, push, have this guy, he's going to push it in, that kind of thing. And we literally went over and loaded all of our bags onto the plane. Yeah, if you're ever going to fly Frontier, don't. Okay. So we do that. And then they're supposed to do the head count, the push off and everything else. This guy literally takes the co-pilot, goes and grabs a tug, pushes the thing out onto the runway. And finally we get clear and we're home free, Wow. But it was extremely scary. But it really, it showed me how bad that it really could be. And it really put a different mindset. So I can, in some ways, not to the extent I'm sure that some of the things that you've seen and you've been through, but I can kind of see where PTSD arises, and I can see like when things hit the fan and everything that, you're probably the most equipped out of everybody.
I think we thrive in chaos.
Yes.
When it's chaotic, that's when I'm most comfortable.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but it's, the bottom line is mindset. We keep saying mindset. It's, we can have these horrible past issues that have happened, things we've seen, things we've done. If we let that guide us in the future, your
Yeah.
future's bleak. You've got to, it's changing that mindset. It's finding the purpose, I think giving back to others. I wish everybody would do that. If everybody would just give to others,
You
think of
remember
what
your
the
hope
world,
thing that you said,
yeah,
helping other
helping
people
other people every
every
day.
day?
That was
Yeah.
the name of my insurance stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah. And it's something I've tried to hold on to throughout, after I started the insurance stuff, is how can I give back? How can I be an example to my family, especially to my kids, clients, just living what I'm speaking. It's, as you know, and I won't go real far in depth, but this past year and a half, so it's been rough for me,
Yeah.
really. And I let it beat me down there for a while. Made a decision last year in May, I've got to do something to change my mindset. So I had this trip planned to Oregon to see my oldest, and 2-week trip. So I get there, and first probably half a week, I'm miserable, man. I'm wallowing in my shit. I'm miserable.
Yeah.
Finally it came to me, what do I always tell my people? I tell them, go find somewhere, be by yourself, take a journal, map out what you want your future to look like. So I decided, I told my daughter, I said, hey, do you guys have a tent? She goes, why? I said,
boy.
do you have a tent? She goes, yeah. I said, her boyfriend's name is Adrian. I says, Adrian, have a couple guns I can borrow. In her mind, Dad, what are you doing? The world needs you. Please. No, I'm not committing suicide here. I need a tent. I need a couple guns. So I ended up going up in the mountains for about a week, completely by myself. First night was scary.
Yeah.
Cuddling my rifle, thinking, holy crap, what am I doing? It's dark. I don't know how to get out of here. Hearing the cougars, the coyotes, the owl, whatever. It was scary. But that week out in those mountains, I left a lot of, if I can say this, a lot of shit up there.
You can say shit.
And I made a commitment that the stuff that I've had happen to me throughout my career after going through this divorce, I need to leave that there in Oregon up on the mountain. When I get back to Missouri, I'm starting fresh, changing my mindset. And that ever since then, man, things have been... Divorce is shitty, right?
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Well, nobody wants to go. I mean, that's never a fun road. I've been down that before. A lot of people don't know I was married before, but
I do. I knew her too.
Right. That's somebody else's problem. Thank you, Jesus. Yeah, but no give backs.
Yeah.
So, but where one door closes, another opens.
Yeah.
You find where again, this is on God's clock, not yours.
My pastor made a statement once, and I love this. Don't co-worry with God, co-labor. Don't co-stress, co-labor with him. Let him have the stress. We need to just kind of follow his lead. And if you're open to it, there's things out there that he's putting in front of us. It's just up to us, free will, to take a hold of them.
Well, I think that it's easy to let stress consume us, especially all the things that are happening in the world, man. It's not an easy go. And I don't think it's going to get better. I think it's going to get worse before it's going to get better. We're going into an election year. Things are going to get wild.
What kind of diseases are we going to come up with?
What kind of, I don't even know what's going on. We just had 5 earthquakes or something all at the same time yesterday. Extremely scary, man.
Yeah.
It's like, what part of the, book of Revelations are we living today? It's the thing is like you were just saying, I have found peace in trying to be able to put my mind into something else. I have like you were talking about, easing your mind and trying to be able to go do something to keep your mind off of things, or to do something you like. Something that you love to be able to do, something that makes you happy.
Find your purpose.
Yeah. And whether that's working out or, making, gardening or whatever whatever you like to do, whether you like to hunt, that kind of thing. I got a lot of buddies that hunt, and, they'll say to me, I'm like, how is that enjoyable? Like, you're out at freezing your ass off at 3 a.m, sitting in a deer stand, or something. I mean, I love to eat you know, I like to eat the
Stuff that other
deer
people kill.
jerky and all this. Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, yeah, I'm just like, I even offer for them to come out because we got a ton of deer out like on our property and stuff, but they are, it's again, it's something that like people have to understand, like your mind is not meant to take that kind of stress.
Right.
You have got to find a way to be able to pull yourself off of that. You know, my barber is one of my very best friends, and he said to me, he was like, he sat me down and he was like, your kids need you, your wife needs you. You need to find a way to try to be able to pull yourself together and not think about the stress that you're going through.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, we go through difficult times together, you know, but this too shall pass, man.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we have to.
Last December, I was, sitting on the bed, had 2 guns sitting out. This is how bad it got. Change of mindset. Had my ex's gun and my gun. I'm thinking, which one am I going to use to blow my head off? I had it. I'm going to go under the pool liner. Nobody will see me. They'll find me in springtime. And all of a sudden, it popped in my head, my dad's face. And it was like, how would he go forward? Didn't think about the kids at first, but it's how would he go forward without me being there? And then from that point forward, I realized I have to change something. This isn't the answer here.
I forgot you and your dad were really close.
Oh yeah, still are.
Yeah.
But yeah, so his face popped in. I put the guns up. I kind of sat there, wrote my journal. What the heck was I thinking? And decided from that point forward, I've got to figure this out. Not saying it was easy till I got up in the mountains, but you know.
Did you end up like shooting anything while you're up there? Or?
I shot the guns, but I didn't really shoot at anything. I had the craziest.
Were you like living off Doritos? Like what?
I brought a bunch of MR like Army meals.
Oh, got it.
So I had it worked. I ate a few things up there. Yeah, tree bark's
clover?
not good, just to see.
Oh my gosh!
Thinking back of my survival days. But anyway, there was a bird for
like pine needle tea and stuff. Like good night.
But there was this big black and white bird for 2 days that followed me everywhere. So I decided wherever this bird on the second day, I'm going to follow where he goes, and I'm going to aggravate the shit out of him. And so this bird, I tried to follow as best I could, ended up leading me to this big waterfall out in the middle of nowhere. I don't know if anybody even knows about this thing, but it had a big, you know, kind of about as big as this room, deep blue, the water coming down. I ended up spending a day and a half there just sitting writing and just listening to the water, trying to listen to God. And yeah, I left a lot of stuff by that waterfall.
That's awesome. I mean, yeah, that's, I mean, you know, whatever it takes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's definitely, like I said, there's a bigger purpose for us in life. And, you know, we don't always like the path that's chosen for us. To be able to get to the destination. But I've always found that as you trust the process, as you put your faith into God,
which is hard sometimes, really hard.
You know, having the faith and moving through it, like you will get through it.
Yeah.
And it might not be pretty and it might not be the way that you want it to, but there's going to be a reason. Like I remember, you know, after my divorce, like it was like you have like a Lifetime movie about it.
Yeah.
Right. It was really, really bad, but I deserved a lot of that. Like some of the, maybe not quite as bad as it was, but,
right.
I deserved a lot of that, but it led me to where I have 3 amazing kids now today because of it. I have the most amazing wife because of it. And we have an incredible business. And I would say a lot of that is attributed to because I go to work every day for my kids and my wife. Like that's my purpose.
Well, you said it yourself. It can run itself. You don't have to, and I'm assuming this, but you don't have to get up every day and go do anything. You could sit on that couch and
they would actually sometimes prefer that a little bit more. Like
you work a little too hard, but that's a whole nother subject.
Right.
I can pencil you in for a counseling session later.
Right. I need that. Yeah. There's, at the end of the day, you know, what I had to do was I had to trust in the process. And whether that it was like you were saying, there are things that are put in front of you, people that are put in front of you to take that stress load off, to take that burden. Trust in that process, and you will succeed.
Trust is a hard word.
I know, man. I mean, I've been, working out in my basement, and, it came from nothing. Like, I didn't have, I shouldn't say I came from nothing. Okay. We were an average family. Like, we didn't live in like the ghetto or anything like that. I don't want to project as
Well,
I
you
had
didn't have the best upbringing either.
No, I always say that like we were a misplaced family, in like a nice town. I wondered sometimes like why we were even there. I think we always lived beyond our means. There's no question about that. But, my parents made sure we had stuff. I mean, it wasn't always pretty and that kind of thing. But as far as starting a business and direction and getting things in life, there were a lot of things that I didn't get. My parents separated when I was 13, and I had to kind of become the man, the alpha of the house. And I had to figure out where I was going to go and what I was going to do. And, I thought baseball was that path.
Yeah.
It was not. God had a different plan. And, I feel as though that this right here is a part of that plan, being able to put my story out there to let people know, like, I'm a real guy, and, I have real feelings, and, I've been through real experiences and everything, and I'm no different than anybody else. People don't understand that you don't get to where you're going unless you go through a ton of hurdles along the way. It does not happen. And if you're expecting it to happen that way, well, you're sorely mistaken.
Or the ones that expect things to be given to them without having to work for it.
You're going to get kicked in the face more times than you know what to do with.
I think
and beaten down.
Fact of some will probably disagree with the honesty that you have is what has made you successful, if that makes sense. Maybe not in the beginning, right?
I was definitely not. Yeah, I was completely honest.
Changed the mindset, became this honest, open book, something that other people can follow, kind of a mentor. And to me, I've always said it, I see you as that with this Mr. Insurance, everything, just helping other people, no matter whether it's insurance or mom and pop businesses, just giving them that motivation and guidance of how to make something successful and not live a lie. There's so many people out there wearing the Rolex watches, driving the fancy cars, that are going home at night in their little one-bedroom apartment, struggling. But it's all show. To me, you've never been that show. This stuff is for real. These are struggles I've had. And to me, your story can help so many other people.
I've learned over the years, and I would say this a lot more with my wife, because I am a showy person. Like, that's just,
well, you like your stuff.
We're always, okay, in our business, we're taught to project, right? To attract others, be like me, get like me, that kind of thing, right? It's
vision board.
Right. It's the presentation, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is that my wife is a very, very private person, and she does not want us to share. And so over the years, I've kind of watched where, I hate to say it, she's been right. We're not getting that on recording, right? But yeah, she was, we've seen a lot of things that have happened as a result of success happening to us. You've had to become a lot more guarded. You've had to become a lot more mellow, toned down. And that's the reason why you see a lot of the very successful people, like, they're living in gated communities and, they're locking themselves in at night and, strapping themselves with guns and things like that, because there's so many people that want to attack that. And, nothing good is coming to you without any kind of struggle.
Yeah, you got to work at it.
And the thing is that, like I said, we went on vacation. Like, we had a great time. We got some awesome stuff. Like, we rented a boat. I was driving the boat with my son. Like, we went out into this most beautiful cove. It's Isla de Mujeres. I think it's called the Island of Women or something. It's like right off of Cancun.
Okay.
And I know where that is. Swam in the water. You could see like right down to the bottom. There was just tons of fish, and we did snorkeling and all that kind of stuff. And it was like we were living on our own terms, man. And, you know, like it really, it was like I thought of all the things that I didn't need to be doing was actually what I needed the most.
Wow.
I needed to forget about all this here back home, all the stress, all the worries. And I needed to go to Mexico, you know, shove more freaking tacos in my pie hole than I can handle, more seafood than I can handle. And I mean, I'll tell you, man, like these resorts, it's just, I mean, like, it's so incredible to see like what these people do, but you don't realize like these resorts, like you get to talking to some of these people and become close to you because you go down there a lot, or we go down there a lot. Well, I don't know about it anymore, but you start talking to them, they're making like $8 an hour, and they're living pretty much under the cartel. Like they get housing, they get, I don't even think transportation. I think they have to like get on the company bus or something like that, but they get housing, they get healthcare and the basics. And these are people that are trying to give you everything and they have nothing. But you come back here to the States and you got people that have everything that want to give you nothing.
Yeah. Complete opposite.
It's a totally different mindset. And it really, really makes you appreciate people and appreciate. I needed to see that. And I needed to have that put in front of me to be able to get rid of that stress and worry.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Which was a good break for you, I'm sure, to leave the stress and worry back here a little
bit. It was. I mean, it did help that it was like over Christmas. And it was weird too, because like, you know, Angie brought that stupid elf, the fucking elf, right? So we brought the elf and my son's still into it. He's, you know, he's freaking 10 years old. And he's still into the elf.
Mine was into it last year. She was 10.
Oh my gosh, right? So, yeah, we ended up, Sancho, the elf.
Oh, Sancho.
We have Jolly Joan, which my mom's name is Joan. And I don't know why we call it Jolly Joan. Okay. So Jolly Joan brought Sancho. Right?
Did you leave them in Mexico?
I hope we did, but apparently, according to Angie, we did not. Yeah. But yeah, those creepy ass elves, whatever. And so I mean, my son, you know, he was like, he didn't understand that. I mean, like, I was trying to think of everything. I was like, yeah, Sam doesn't go through customs, and, you know, but that wasn't going to work.
He gets a pass.
But we had where Santa left a note and says, hey, you know, I hope you're good. We left Sancho and Jolly Joan here to look after you. And we're so happy that you were able to spend time with your family, be good for your parents, that kind of thing. And then like we put some candy and stuff in their shoes.
That's
like
awesome.
That kind of thing. And then, you know, remember that making memories with your family is more important than gifts. You know, and we forget that, like we really do.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's freaking like between DoorDash and I mean like Amazon. I'm guilty there too. Okay. But man, it's literally Christmas like every freaking day of the year.
Yeah.
So we were like, you know what? We want to make some memories. We want to do something different.
You change things up a little bit.
We're creating traditions with our family. I want to be able to take my kids and hopefully one day their kids and their spouses, I want to be able to have that memory making that we didn't have.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, but we're running a little bit short on time. Man, I really appreciate you coming on here.
I appreciate you having me. Quick plug for Jennifer McElfresh, right? Energize Wellness. If you guys and girls have not gotten your levels checked, testosterone, estrogen, that was my life changer. A little over a year ago was meeting her and starting that process, and yeah, energy again, able to go to the gym, pain's not as bad. It's just, a big life changer, getting your hormones all in line and where they should be.
Yeah, it's a game changer. I know that like I've personally, you know, been on hormone therapy for quite a few years now. When I was about 35, it just like
Yeah, I had no
stop.
idea about that stuff. And
It-
when I got my levels checked, I couldn't figure out, like, the last couple of years, I was way underweight. I would get home after counseling all day and just didn't want to do anything. And when I got them checked, I was about 400 under where I was supposed to be at the minimum. So
You're like 200?
I was 101.
Wow. Yeah.
So it explained a lot. I had an answer.
You're like putting a skirt on at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not good.
Lactating and
Yeah.
it was horrible. No, I'm just kidding. But
No,
yeah,
it messes with your
changed.
mindset. It gives you kind of like a peek into what women deal with too.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Because estrogen is a crazy hormone.
Yes, sir.
But no, she's awesome. Also, talked about real quick here before we go. How can the veterans get in touch with you to be able to go and be able to get some help? 'Cause we didn't really stress on that you're there at the Veteran Center and you coordinate.
Not at the vet center anymore. So a very quick story. Left the vet center. I was going to take a job in Bend, Oregon, counseling there. That ended up not going through because of the divorce stuff. Just some different things happened. The day I'm feeling sorry for myself, oh my gosh, I'm about to not have a job at all with the federal government, which is stressful for me. I ended up just something popped in my head, called the director of VHA Veteran Healthcare, who's a guy I've known for years and years. So I called him up and said, Fabian, this is what's going on. I'm about to lose this counseling job in Oregon because I can't move there. Do you have any ideas? He goes, Chris, you're not going to believe this, but the guy in Patient Advocate just dropped his retirement paperwork. We don't have anybody to fill that position. You interested? So the rest is history. So I left the counseling world a little bit. I'm now doing patient relations, which is part of the executive team with the VA at John Cochran and Jefferson Barracks. But I'm still, I wanted to help veterans on a higher level. So now I get to kind of impact that big change within our hospital system.
Is there a way to reach out to you to where they can contact you? Can you let them know?
Yeah, so best way to get me would be email, and it would be my first name, Christopher, and then .FIGURA.
It's a Christopher with a C?
Yeah. Okay. With the C, the man way.
Right? Yeah, well, I don't know anymore.
So Christopher.Figura, FIGURA, @va.gov. Reach out to me if you're a veteran or a veteran family member. Not sure what benefits are out there for you, or just need some kind of help navigating this VA system, which is so confusing.
You've helped a lot of people that I have personally run across. My father-in-law was one.
I forgot
one of the guys that that he used to work for me. You helped him quite a bit.
Yeah, which he's doing really, really well now.
I'm happy to hear about that. That's, but yeah, I mean, the first step of the process is knowing that there is some help out there for you.
Yeah, there is. And, nothing against big VA and veterans will understand what that means. But if you have a vet center that's near where you're at, go and see those counselors. Just about every single counselor with the vet center is also a combat veteran. It's easy to relate if, the person you're sitting across the table from has been in the shit just like you are. You understand there's this commonality, and most your vet centers, all the counselors have that kind of experience, and they're on the other side of it doing well.
We heard it. So it is Christopher with a C, .Figura at va.gov.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, man, hey, I appreciate you taking a moment out of your day to be able to spend some time here with me.
Glad I get to
appreciate your friendship.
Yeah, you as well.
You're doing a great thing for a lot of guys and a lot of women. So
you too.
Keep doing what you're doing, and we'll catch you guys next time.